Welcome to lesson number 7 on scientific notation. Our lesson objectives: convert numbers into scientific notation and standard notation and calculate mathematical operations using scientific notation. So what is scientific notation? It's a way to represent large or small numbers. For example, the mass of a hydrogen atom is a very, very small number with lots of zeros, and so scientific notation can represent that number in a much easier way as 1.67 times 10 to the negative 24th. If you have a really large number, like 2 grams of hydrogen molecules, 602 sectillion, there are lots of zeros here, we can represent that number again in scientific notation as 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd molecules. So what is the general pattern for scientific notation? Well, there's an m value, that number out in front, and then times 10 to some power here, n. And that n is the number of decimal spaces moved to make this m value. So let's see an example. When you're given a number and you want to convert it into scientific notation, first thing you do is you find the decimal point. If there's not one there, you have to put it in at the end of the number. And then we're going to move that decimal point to make this number m. The number m is going to be basically 1 through 9. So I'm moving the decimal point until I have a single digit. So I'm going to go to the left, 1 space, 2 space, 3 space, and I'm stopping now because now I have 2, one single number, and so that is my m value. So it's 2.457. And now it's going to be times 10 to how many spaces I moved. I moved 1, 2, 3 spaces, so it's times 10 to the third. If that original number that I had here was less than 1, then there would be a negative value here. So let's see some examples of converting from expanded form into scientific notation. So this first number here, it's a number larger than 1, so it's going to be a positive exponent. I'm going to put it in my decimal point at the end of the number, and I move it to the left until I get to a single digit, which is going to be 4.5450. And then I move 4 spaces, so the exponent times 10 is going to be to the 4th. So the number is 4.5450 times 10 to the 4th grams. Now we have a number less than 1, so the exponent is going to be negative, and the decimal is going to be moved to the right. Okay, so we're trying to make that m value a number from 1 to 10. So I'm going to go to the right, 1, 2, 3 spaces to make it 4.53. And then, because it's less than 1, it's a negative exponent, so we went 3 spaces, so it's times 10 to the negative third. So let's check your understanding. Can you convert numbers into scientific notation? Okay, so now let's see some examples of going from scientific notation back to expanded form. So we have our number here in scientific notation, and we see we have a negative exponent. So remember, a negative exponent means the number is less than 1, and so we have to move our decimal point to the left. And so I'm going to move to the left 2 spaces as indicated by the number here. So take my decimal point and go to the left 2 spaces, and I get 0.045 grams. Here we have a number that is larger than 1 as indicated by the positive exponent. So I'm going to the right, and I'm going to go to the right 3 spaces. So I'm going to move this decimal 3 spaces to the right, and I get an answer of 2,600 mLs. So you want to get comfortable going into and out of scientific notation. So let's check your understanding. Can you convert numbers into standard notation or the expanded form from scientific notation? And lastly, how do we perform calculations with scientific notation using our calculator? So if you were given a operation like 5.44 times 10 to the 7th, and you want to divide it by 8.10 times 10 to the 4th, how do you do that in your calculator? So there is a second function button. So here's the second function on the calculation class, and then there's this EE you can see as a second function. That stands for enter exponent. And so I'm going to show you how to type that into the calculator. So the first thing you would do for this operation is 5.44, and then you're going to hit the second function, and then that EE button, enter exponent, and then you're going to enter your exponent, which is 7. So it's 5.44, enter the exponent, which basically means times 10, and then you're putting in the 7. Divided by 8.10, again, second function, enter your exponent, 4, and then equals, or enter. You're going to get an answer of, in this case, 671.60493. For graphing calculators, it's going to be the same thing. It's still going to be an enter exponent button. For some older calculators, if you have an older calculator, it may say EXP for exponent. And then, of course, we run around to proper sig figs, and so we round this to 672 grams per mole, because this number here and this number here only have 3 significant figures, and the multiplication division rule for rounding says you round to least number of sig figs. So let's check your understanding. Can you calculate mathematical operations using scientific notation? At this point, you should be able to convert numbers into scientific notation and standard notation, and then calculate mathematical operations using scientific notation.